The Bible is precise when it closes a story. It records death, burial, and an end. But two names break this rule. Enoch does not die. Elijah does not fall. There is no grave, no farewell, no conclusion. The text does not explain. It simply records it and moves on, as if deliberately leaving something unresolved. Centuries pass. Empires rise and fall. Prophets die. Kings disappear. But these two accounts remain without a full stop. Two men appear in Jerusalem, in the most exposed place possible. They speak before crowds. They confront leaders. They interrupt rituals. Their presence alters the rhythm of the city. While they remain there, no force is able to stop what they proclaim. The confrontation grows. The tension accumulates until the response comes. Before everyone, the two are executed. The bodies remain in the same place, exposed, untouched. The scene becomes a spectacle. People gather, they watch, they celebrate. The sense is one of closure. The disturbance has been removed. Order has been restored. Days pass with the bodies still visible. Time consolidates the certainty. Celebration spreads. It is at this point that the narrative holds its breath. The text halts its advance and sustains the scene until understanding imposes itself, because it is there that everything begins to make sense, in the valley of redemption. The Bible moves forward as a firm record. Names follow names. Generations accumulate. Lives begin and end without interruption. This rhythm remains intact until, suddenly, something ceases to obey the expected order. Enoch passes through the narrative without completing his course. The text affirms his walk, and then his absence. No farewell accompanies the account. No conclusion is offered. The story simply continues, carrying that gap with it. The silence does not seem accidental. Scripture does not react, does not comment, does not clarify. It records and moves on, as if that absence did not yet demand an answer. The reader is left with the sense that something has been removed from the timeline, not erased, merely displaced. Centuries later, the same structure repeats itself in another setting. Elijah appears amid tension, confrontation, and moral collapse. His presence is not discreet. He occupies the center of the scene, speaks before power, and brings his mission to an end under the eyes of witnesses. Then, in the same unexpected way, he leaves the earth. The text describes the moment with precision, yet avoids any sense of finality. There is no return to dust. The narrative does not close the door. Two men, two eras, the same kind of absence. The Bible preserves these accounts without treating them as curious exceptions or abstract symbols. They remain there, integrated into history, carrying an incompleteness that spans generations. Open stories do not belong only to the past. They remain active within the text, awaiting the moment when they will be called again. What draws attention in these two accounts is not only the disappearance, but the way the Bible chooses to treat it. The text does not construct mourning. It records no collective reaction. It offers no emotional closure. It keeps the narrative in motion, as if that absence had not ended anything, but merely displaced something that would still serve a function. This creates a rare pattern. Scripture normally insists on clear endings. Kings fall, prophets die, graves are mentioned, death establishes boundaries. With Enoch and Elijah, that boundary is not set. The text refuses to conclude, and that refusal becomes part of the message. Both move through periods of collapse. Enoch walks in a world rapidly deteriorating, where violence accumulates and judgment approaches. Elijah acts within a corrupted religious system, before authorities who no longer distinguish power from truth. Neither appears in stable times. Their stories unfold when order begins to fail. The removal of both occurs before the outcome of those periods. Enoch disappears before the flood. Elijah is taken before Israel resolves its internal rupture. Instead of following the collapse to its end, they are removed from the scene, not as an escape, but as a suspension. The Bible preserves these suspensions without direct explanation. It does not state an immediate purpose. It does not anticipate a return. It simply keeps the absence active within the narrative as an element that has not been resolved, only interrupted. This kind of interruption does not point to closure. It points to reappearance. Stories that receive no full stop remain available to be resumed when the text demands continuity. And Revelation is built precisely upon this kind of resumption. Revelation does not introduce something new. It reactivates something ancient. When the text speaks of two witnesses, it does not create characters from nothing. It retrieves a logic that had already been placed in suspension. Two unresolved stories reappear in the one setting where everything must be exposed. Jerusalem is not chosen for symbolism. It is chosen for visibility. Religion, power, tradition, and conflict converge there. Everything that happens in that space ceases to be local. It becomes public, irreversible. It is in this environment that the two witnesses emerge, not as marginal figures, but as a direct interruption of the city's normal flow. They speak where they should not. They remain where they are not wanted. The text makes it clear that this is not private speech or discreet warning. Their activity is open, persistent, visible. Their presence creates constant friction because it dismantles the apparent stability the system tries to sustain. Throughout the entire period of their activity, something unusual occurs. They cannot be stopped. Not by negotiation, not by repression, not by force. The text does not suggest symbolic protection, but a real barrier. While the mission is underway, power fails repeatedly. This reveals a recurring principle in Scripture. Authority does not necessarily coincide with control. There are moments when the system appears absolute, yet cannot act. The work of the witnesses takes place precisely in that interval, when the world functions, but does not govern everything. And then, without warning, the dynamic changes. The text does not dramatize the transition. It simply records that permission shifts. What could not happen before now does. The execution does not arrive as a narrative surprise, but as a structural turn. Something has been completed. Their death does not close the story. It signals that the next phase has begun. The public execution creates the impression of closure. The system regains control. The interruption is removed. The city resumes its rhythm. The text describes an unusual reaction. Celebration. There is no discomfort, no silence. There is collective relief. The absence of the witnesses is interpreted as victory. The bodies remain exposed. Scripture insists on this detail because it consolidates certainty. There is no possible doubt when the body remains visible. Time passes. Repetition confirms it. The narrative makes it clear that human confidence is built there. In the accumulation of hours, in continuous observation, in the conviction that nothing will change. This is the most dangerous point of the story. Not the confrontation, not the execution, but the absolute certainty of conclusion. The text slows at this moment. It does not move quickly. It remains fixed on the scene, as if forcing the reader to watch the same error being committed on a global scale. The error is not in believing that the men died. They did die. The error lies in concluding that the story ended there. The Bible distinguishes death from closure. Not every death seals a process. Some merely shift the narrative to a level beyond ordinary sight. When the text resumes its movement, it does so without emotional preparation. There is no gentle transition. The sequence simply happens. What was motionless moves. What was certain fractures. What seemed resolved exposes its fragility. It is at this moment that Revelation reveals its central point. The world errs not because it lacks information, but because it places too much trust in what it sees. This story does not move forward to generate anxiety about the future, nor does it return to the past out of nostalgia. It remains because it touches a sensitive point. The way human beings react when something they believe to be finished reappears before them. Revelation does not merely describe events, it describes reactions. It observes relief, celebration, premature certainty, and exposes how much these responses reveal about the observer, rather than about what is taking place. The two witnesses do not exist to defeat a system, but to reveal its limits. They speak while they are permitted to speak, remain while they are meant to remain, and disappear when the narrative requires a different movement. Nothing there is excessive, nothing is improvised. The text follows a precise logic, even when it challenges immediate reading. In the end, what remains is not a closed explanation, but a legitimate unease. The question is not when this happens, nor how. The question is what we do when certainty breaks, when control fails, when what seemed resolved rises back to the surface. It is at this point that the narrative ceases to be observed from a distance and begins to demand a position.